The Steam Turn-Based RPG Festival is here, and even though it is a little bit disappointing overall in my opinion, there are still some great games to be found, and even some surprising sales too. Starting of course with the modern classics, XCOM 1 and 2 are games that every turn-based tactics fan should have. A ton of soldier customization, permadeath, and literally thousands of mods make it so that you can fine-tune this gaming experience to however you want it to be. Although strangely, only vanilla XCOM 2 is on sale and not the expansion. But if you buy them bundled together, it's still cheaper, so I don't know if there's a bug in the UI or what. You can also grab Enemy Unknown, which even though it's a little bit older, doesn't feel quite as dated as you might think and has more of a dark horror style aesthetic to it. Steamworld Heist 2 is one of the best turn-based tactics releases this year, and it really wasn't that long ago. I was surprised to see this one on sale and not the first one. However, the sequel is masterfully done, taking on all of the mechanics from the first game and improving them, while pairing a bigger open world with flexible exploration, job, and class systems. Even better feeling combat and fully customizable difficulty settings are the icing on the cake, as players can really define their own experience with this game. And of course, there's a killer performance by steam-powered Draft. Battle Brothers is a classic turn-based tactics RPG with a little bit of a minimalist graphic style and some absolutely fantastic writing. Lead your mercenary company through a medieval dark open world and navigate all the challenges that come with it. If punishing turn-based tactics combat, character customization, and permadeath are your thing, then this just might be the game for you. Battle Brothers even has its own full-scale overhaul mod called Reforged that reworks and expands a lot of the game and can extend the replayability of the game after you're done with vanilla. Going in the opposite direction, Jagged Alliance 3 is another game where you control a company of mercs, but in a more modern setting with a very violent and dark humor approach. The third entry in the franchise does a good job of keeping the classic mechanics that make Jagged Alliance while combining them with new, updated, modern gameplay. And it should be noted that while development for this game is for the most part technically complete, the modding community is just starting to really take over, and as we've seen with so many of these games, that's something that will keep this game being played and alive for years. Cruising with an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam, Tactical Breach Wizards is not your typical turn-based tactics game. Although this one definitely leans more towards a puzzle-style game, it's got a crazy world where magic and military mix, unique characters with a lot of sarcastic and witty dialogue, and a rewind mechanic that does just enough to make it not feel too punishing to the player. I know 10% off is really not that great of a deal, but the game is cheaper than a lot of other games to begin with, and if you think a game like this can't have any replayability, there's already a Steam workshop full of player-created levels and missions for you to enjoy. Developed by one of the creators of the original XCOM, Julian Gollop, Phoenix Point is the closest XCOM-like experience that there is. You fight against a virus that is mutating mankind, all while managing multiple bases, squads, and a global front. While the production level and polish overall is not as high as the XCOM series, the complexity is much deeper, with even the base game having a lot of features that are similar to the Long War mod in XCOM 2. On top of that, Phoenix Point has a lot of DLC packs and a huge overhaul mod of its own called Terror from the Void that reworks a lot of the base game systems and adds even more enemies on top of it. This is a worthwhile squad-based tactics experience, and if you're looking to jump in, now is the best time to be able to grab the base game or all of the DLC. So, if you ever wanted to star in your own homicidal game show, that's what Showgunners is, pitting contestants against criminals, murderers, and psychopaths to see who can survive. While there is no character creator and light customization, the combat layer is actually very polished and well done here with XCOM-style abilities, movement, and kill cams. I think it goes without saying that this one can also get pretty gory and graphic. In between encounters and ambushes, you'll be navigating a booby trap-filled arena in real time just to keep things interesting, and it actually comes together a lot better than you might think. Showgunners is a hidden gem for anybody who really enjoys the turn-based tactic combat style of XCOM, and it even has a free DLC add-on. Even if you're just a casual Marvel fan, Midnight Suns is a very good turn-based tactics game. The card combat system that you've likely heard about is not as limiting as it looks on the surface, and the production value and polish here is top-notch. Midnight Suns has a good-sized roster of well-known and slightly more obscure heroes that all manage to play pretty distinctly different from each other. That makes finding synergies and the right combinations feel very satisfying. If you like a deep story and world, the narrative is a huge focus in Midnight Suns, as well as character building and relationships. Not to mention, now that all the DLC has been released, the Legendary Edition can get you all of the extras at one great price. For turn-based tactics set in the Warhammer universe, Mechanicus is a fun and challenging game where the strategy really lies in understanding turn orders, abilities, and positioning. You can toggle permadeath for your customizable hero characters, as well as Iron Man mode and a lot of personalized difficulty setting options. Most characters speak in a machine language, so there's a lot of reading involved here, just so you know. Also, the overworld and tomb diving itself is not especially deep, although it does include random text-based events and decision-making as you head towards the combat at the end of the levels. If, like me, you're not a huge Warhammer fan, man, this may not be fully up your alley, but I did find the squad building and combat to be challenging and enjoyable once I got the hang of it. Mechanicus 2 was also recently announced to be coming, so if you just want to see what it's all about, this is the price to do it at. Wildermyth is a game about legacies, and if you like to keep your heroes around and see them grow old, this might be your thing. The game is designed to follow your heroes all the way through multiple playthroughs and generations, and with procedurally generated events, every campaign is unique. The art style is also different, for better or worse, and the base game only has 3 character classes. However, Wildermyth has full Steam Workshop support and hundreds of mods, helping to add to its replayability and overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam. If you're looking for a World War II game, Classified France 44 has you play as a specialized group of elite operators, launching raids in German territory in the months leading up to D-Day. Stealth plays a big part here, so you won't always be running and gunning and jumping into the action. Cosmetic customization is basic, and the focus leans more towards the individual characters and their skill trees with multiple paths that you can choose. It should also be noted that the production level here is AA, so there is a little bit of jank, and there is also a firm D-Day countdown timer that caps the amount of missions you can do. A game that really needs no introduction. If you somehow haven't played Darkest Dungeon yet, this is definitely one you should grab. A phenomenal atmosphere and combat system with plenty of horrific bosses and dungeons to crawl through to your heart's content. Not to mention the modding community of this game, which is huge and recently released an overhaul mod called the Black Reliquary. I really can't recommend it enough at a price like this, even though I know that it can get a little grindy and punishing a little too well, as I've been trying to beat this game and finish all of the DLC off and on for probably about 5 years now. A mix of cyberpunk, magic, and fantasy, Shadowrun Dragonfall is an older turn-based tactics game, but the director's cut is the definitive experience. If that world sounds at all interesting to you, you should check this one out because the writing and story is actually very good along with the atmosphere. It's not an overly long game, and you can probably beat it in about 12 to 15 hours, so for the price it is a solid experience, and there's even a little bit of workshop mod content on Steam available. Chroma Squad is a little bit of a hidden gem, and it's a game that leans into the old school TV Power Rangers tropes. You'll play as 5 stunt actors who quit their jobs and start their own Power Rangers style TV show by hiring actors, upgrading your studio, and then rolling the camera for your turn-based tactics fights. Combat itself is not overly complex, but it works in the context of the game, as this is just designed to be a fun, cheesy romp. It accomplishes all of that and might even bring back some nostalgia from your childhood. Turn-based tactics, mechs, and long battles. If you like those 3 things, then there's no reason that you shouldn't like Battletech. This is a very fleshed out game where you will handle your mercenary company of mechs and manage their finances all the way down to the troops in battle. There is a lot of customization available, and if you enjoy the base game, there's plenty of extra DLC that you can buy also. However, with a roughly 50-hour plus base campaign length, that really should not be necessary. At $9.99, there's plenty of bang for your buck here. If you like the Fire Emblem style of turn-based strategy and an old-school feel, Symphony of War might be a game for you to check out. With over 50 character classes and a focus on small squad-based battles that can still turn massive, and things like weather and terrain affecting how you play, the combat is fast and feels good. However, I will say the graphics and UI are a little bit rough and the story isn't really anything to write home about, but if you can look past or don't care about those things, the combat here is very rewarding.